Joining us now by Skype for a reaction to all of this is the host of this show, Mr. Lou Dobbs. A pleasure to see you, Lou. A very busy day for the president, for Congress. Not only did they get that package signed finally into law after some diddling on the part of Congress, but the president also invoking the Defense Production Act to get GM hopping on those ventilators. So it's just an extraordinarily busy day. Why don't you opine on all of what we've seen today?
Well, I'm delighted to be with you, David. Thank you so much. In opining on at least this $2 trillion stimulus package, they don't like it when you call it that, but that is precisely what it is. And for many, it is an outright rescue, millions of American workers. And I salute the president, the Congress, for moving, as you said, they dithered, but they dithered in Trump time. The reality is it took them just over a week to get this thing moved to reality, to signature, and I think that's very impressive. And yes, there was some agita along the way, but ultimately they served the interest of the American people, the American family, and small business and big as well. So I think it's I think they deserve a commendation. So I would offer that. Secondly, I think it's going to be incredibly effective, as well as great aid and comfort to those in this country who need it, namely those who've lost jobs already, and the incentives in this to keep workers on the job is unprecedented. It is a historic package, not only in terms of scale, but in terms of its content and its recognition that the American worker is the center, along with the middle class of this country, to everything we are and do. So I am just tremendously enthused by what I've witnessed in Washington, D.C. And as you know, David, I'm not often enthused.
not by what happens inside the Beltway, at any rate. You know, Americans are responding, at least through the polls, with support for the president and his leadership specifically as regards the virus that is gripping America. Otherwise, they would be in a fearful state, and clearly they see a sense of leadership on the part of the White House that is not calming Americans, because there is a lot to be nervous about with regard to the virus, but at least assuring them that they're in good hands right now.
Yeah, his leadership has been steady and sure. I'm amazed at some of the criticism I've heard, even though we've heard it for 3.5 years almost, as he sits in the Oval Office. Even as he is succeeding, even as he is achieving exactly what he communicates to the American people, the national left-wing media continue to critique him, to suggest that he is somehow faltering. The reality is that what scares the left-wing media and the Democratic Party so much is that his leadership is so predictable. They want to try to brand him as some sort of eccentric, when in fact he drives straight down the middle. When you look at his policies and those that this stimulus bill addresses and supports, it is the broad swath of America. It is not on the left. It is not on the right. It is right down the middle where it ought to be. And one of the things, David, I don't think it's much attention on the part of the national left-wing media, like most of his successes, but he is communicating with the American people, the American voter, the middle class, those who aspire to it, working men and women. Not the people who are sitting in Wall Street marble corner offices, but rather the people who are the absolute backbone of the country. And that money is going to them. Certainly not all of it, but more than they've ever seen in any previous economic emergency. He likes to call it a health emergency, and it is all that. But that health emergency has created a financial crisis of unfathomable and also unprecedented severity. We've never seen anything like this in such a quick time. These things normally take, as you know, as a student of economic history, sometimes years to unfold before us. Yeah. This was happening in 1 month, and it's extraordinary how quick the response is and how effective I believe it will be.
Well, and thankfully, he did get the deal done before the end of the week. I mean, we were mentioning the dithering that took place, and this time, initially in the beginning of the week by a Democrat, Mr. Schumer was trying to do it over in the Senate. Now by a Republican, Mr. Massey in the House. But the president got the deal. The president was honest about it. He said, look, I don't like everything that's in here, but you got to get a deal done. Sometimes you have to swallow some bitterness in order to take the medicine that you need.
Well, Schumer and Massey are two, there's not an equivalency in my mind. Schumer knows better. He was playing terrible games, ideological games, and spiteful games as a representative of the party of hate. And I really hate to see that. He and Pelosi were, to me, as offensive and awful as they've been in their careers, in which they've tested the limits of awful several times. But this was not a great moment for Schumer and Pelosi, even though they finally at the end came to their senses and did the right thing for the American people. Congressman Massey is an individual force who decided he could block the will of the Congress, even though in all of his time in Congress, the man has not persuaded a single person to stand with him, you noticed, on any issue. He is an outlier of the worst kind, that is, aggressively so, trying to assert power over the direction of the institution. Is only one man who's incapable of persuading others of his view and his philosophy. So I find no excuse for him at all.
And now we have, looking to the future, the prospect of coming out of a dead stall for the economy, if you will, or close to it. And even Governor Cuomo of New York, who's been waffling one way or the other, he's now saying that that we can do both. We can lick the virus through a partial shutdown and still get the economy, have parts of the economy moving. I'm not clear where he'll end up when his head stops spinning, but at least America now is looking to the future of restarting the economy.
Yeah. America will do that irrespective of Cuomo. Cuomo, I think we have to put in context his leadership on this. He was late. De Blasio, for crying out loud, the mayor of New York City, was ahead of him in terms of addressing this crisis. And then Cuomo steps in as if he is some sort of a savior rather than a failed leader. It was he who did not buy ventilators when he should have bought them. And it was his responsibility to do so. But instead, he's buying solar panels, for crying out loud. And then he depended entirely upon the federal government and the Trump administration, thanks them very much. Then he attacks them because he thinks in his studied leadership that he should have been consulted. This is a man who has done nothing for New York, and it is the epicenter of this outbreak. It has the largest number of victims, and that is the responsibility of the mayor of New York City and the governor of this state. And he is trying to alternate between being martyr, being critic, and also, by the way, failed leader of the state that has much to account for as a result of this extraordinary outbreak, the worst in the nation, the worst, in fact, outside of Wuhan.
Lou, we have to jump, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention this
don't
is
jump,
the last.
David, whatever you do.
I'm on the first floor, so don't worry. I can't get hurt if I do jump.
Okay.
But this is the last day of your quarantine, I'm happy to mention, and
Yes,
we will see you back in this seat on Monday, right?
And it's the last day of quarantine for the entire staff of Lou Dobbs tonight.
Excellent.
I'm happy to say.
It's wonderful
and
news.
Everyone is healthy, able, and eager to get back to work Monday.
It's a great
Thank you so
milestone.
much, David. You've been terrific throughout the week.
It's my pleasure. Anytime.
And we certainly appreciate it.
And we'll be happy to see you back here on Monday. Thank you, Lou. Have a great weekend. Appreciate it.